Watch this.
Ahead on your Friday edition of the 208, remembering Idaho Governor Phil Batt. Today, the state of Idaho pays tribute to the former leader of our state in a special service dedicated to his life and accomplishments. You had so many questions for us this week that we didn't have time to get to them all. So, on this Friday, we are cleaning out the inbox and taking your comments, questions, and thoughts on the week that was. And yes, we will touch on all those political comments that you had. Over on the ice, the Idaho Steelheads have two major goals in sight for this weekend series against the Allen Americans. We're going to head to downtown Boise to get you ready for this major weekend series with the voice of the Idaho Steelheads. 208 starts right now. Oh, you know the drill here on Fridays. It's a little bit different here on the 208. We like to keep the conversation going with you and take some more time during our Friday edition of the program to answer your questions, address your comments. And this week, we got a lot of random questions all over the place sent in to us. So we are going to do our best to answer as many as we can, rapid fire style. So here we go. We'll start with this. John in Meridian asked us this week a few times, is insurance required for the illegal driver's license? So what he's talking about is Senate Bill 1081. It's actually called the restricted driver's licenses. And the licenses are meant for undocumented Idaho residents who need driver's licenses to work and live. And the answer to John's question is basically yes. To get car insurance, you need to have identification, meaning a driver's license. So you don't need car insurance to get a driver's license, but you need a driver's license to get your car insurance, if that all makes sense. So this new legislation that's being talked about at the State House, it would allow Idahoans to get a driver's license so they're eligible for car insurance, which advocates for the idea say would make the road safer for everyone. Keeping a close eye on that one, though, heading into next week. Then on Monday, Deb and Emmett asked us, do you know if the new statue at the Capitol, the women's suffrage one, will it eventually have a plaque providing information about the statue? And to be honest with you, I think the statue, it's kind of as is. That's what we're going to get. But if you wanted some more information or you're curious about the design and the story behind it, we actually did a full feature on it, and you can find that by searching Idaho Women's State Capitol Suffrage Statue. You can search that at ktvb.com, and you'll be able to find out the whole story and history behind it. And we also got a lot of questions on Wednesday this week when we talked about daycare funding, education savings accounts, and the Idaho launch and militia bill. So clearly, the legislature has a lot on their plate, many different topics. So we'll start with Shane. Shane asked, if the legislature does not get all their work done by the end of March, can't they call themselves back anytime they want? So he's correct, they can, but the only thing that the legislature has to do in terms of their job, constitutionally mandated, is pass budgets and review the rules. And outside of that, there's nothing they have to do before going home. So Shane is correct. Lawmakers do have the power to call themselves back into session, but that is a wait and see if there is an issue so big that lawmakers decide they can't wait for next year. The end of March, by the way, is a target end date. There's nothing that forces the legislature to go home on the 24th of March, but Speaker Mike Moyle of the Idaho House says that's a day he's got circled on his calendar. We'll find out how accurate it is in the next few weeks. Also on Wednesday for you, Winton from Boise asked us, is using taxpayer dollars for religious schools, homeschools, constitutionally valid in the state of Idaho? And that's a great question that gets a lot of conversations, and honestly, it depends on who you ask. But there is something in the Idaho Constitution that touches on public money for private institutions, and this is commonly referred to as the Blaine Amendment, which basically says that the legislature or any county, city, school district, etc., they cannot give public money to a church or religious society or a school or other literary or scientific institution controlled by any church or religious denomination whatsoever. So that's what the Blaine Amendment talks about here in the state of Idaho, but there is currently legislation trying to remove that amendment. And Senate Joint Resolution, it's called 102, it's proposing to repeal the Blaine Amendment from the Idaho Constitutions. Now, some say that this is so things like the education savings accounts, for example, which is essentially a program where public money could go to private, religious, and homeschools. The idea of repealing the Blaine Amendment is so that programs like ESAs can happen in Idaho, so SJR 102 as it's called. It was printed and is sitting in the Senate State Affairs Committee. It is important to note, though, that there are those that say that the Blaine Amendment in Idaho is actually null because of a court decision made over in Montana. To be very clear, though, the district court decision, the court decision over in Montana, it said that if a state gives public dollars to a private school, then they also have to give them to a religious school. So you couldn't just pick one or the other, it's all or nothing. That was the specific Montana issue that was solved in their courts, and in the courts, I should say. Now in Idaho, that Blaine Amendment, it is on the books, as we just showed you, and there is an argument that it prevents things like the proposed ESA program. So it would take a legal test, I suppose, but yes, Idaho has a law that prevents aid of any church or sectarian or religious society or any sectarian or religious purpose, or to help support or sustain any school, academy, seminary, college, university, anything like that that has to do with religion or any organization that's controlled by the church. So there you go. Long story short, it's something, though, that we're going to have to keep an eye on here over the next few weeks and likely the next few years. Staying with the legislature, Sue in Boise says, if the daycare funding that we talked about this week was from COVID relief funds, it's federal dollars designated specifically, can the state just change that? And that's from Sue in Boise. And long story short, no, Sue, they cannot, because those federal dollars, they have very specific strings attached to them and how Idaho has to use them. And they have to be very careful that federal aid dollars are being used correctly. If not, there can be major consequences that could lead to a state like Idaho losing federal dollars next time around. Leslie in Meridian asked us this week, since there is no statute of limitations on murder, can women who have had an abortion years ago be charged with murder? And the answer to your question is no. And the abortion laws in Idaho, to be clear, they don't criminalize a pregnant mother or a woman who gets an abortion. The criminal in Idaho's abortion laws are the doctors or the providers that would be doing the illegal abortion under Idaho law. And then yesterday, on Thursday, Rhonda in Meridian asked something related to legislation, but this one would be federal legislation. She said to us, can you talk about daylight saving time again? Is it a for sure thing? And so, Rhonda, the short answer is yes. For now, daylight saving time is still a for sure thing, unless you live in the state of Arizona, so that your clock will spring forward this Sunday here in Idaho, meaning that you'll lose an hour of sleep late on Saturday, early on Sunday morning. But we'll gain an hour of sunlight on the back end, which is always good news. So the new sunset time starting next week, really on Sunday, it'll be around 7:30 p.m., so about an hour later than we're seeing it now. As for the legislation, only an act of Congress can decide to make daylight saving time permanent year-round. And last March, the Sunshine Protection Act was reintroduced to keep daylight saving time permanent starting on November 5th of this year. So no falling back, but as of this week, the bill still hasn't been voted on in the United States Senate, and it would have to pass the U.S. House and be signed by President Biden. So no daylight saving time is not gone yet, so don't forget to change your clocks on Sunday morning when you wake up. Of course, from 2 to 3 a.m., that's when the big hour jump will be, so you'll probably be asleep. But anyways, we love to hear your comments and your questions, and really what drives our program here on the 208. So please keep sending in anything you'd like to 208-321-5614, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some more questions coming up in future shows. Today, the state of Idaho pays tribute to former Idaho Governor Phil Batt. His funeral took place earlier at the Cathedral of the Rockies in Boise. Ahead, we're going to take you there to share the sights, sounds, and memories of Governor Batt. And it's that time. Maybe you have something you want to send into the show. Text us your questions, comments, and concerns at the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Don't forget your name and hashtag the 208, and make sure to keep your messages clean, concise, and clever. We might show yours at the end of the show. Well, an emotional day across the state of Idaho for you. Former Governor Phil Batt, who died last Saturday on his 96th birthday, today was his funeral. And Governor Batt served as the 29th governor of Idaho from 1995 to 1999. He was loved and respected by many for his fierce dedication to Idahoans, but also his fun-loving personality. And yesterday we showed you parts of Governor Phil Batt's lying in state. And this morning he was moved from the state capitol to the Cathedral of the Rockies for his public funeral. Here's what it looked like.
It is said we stand on the shoulders of giants as we look for ways to better the human condition. All of us here today stood on the shoulders of the little giant from Wilder, Philip Eugene Batt.
Amazing grace.
Phil's life, both public and private, serve as the standard for what it means to be an Idahoan.
How sweet that sound.
Batt's 4 years as governor were highlighted by his unwavering support for human rights, including his decision to become his own liaison to Idaho's Native American tribes, expanding workers' compensation to include farm workers, and establishing the governor's Hispanic Initiative to recognize Idaho's fastest growing minority.
This belief in being inclusive and welcoming is the cornerstone of his legacy and led to one of his greatest honors, having the Wasman Center for Human Rights be named the Philip E. Batt Building.
But he was much more than a politician. He was a writer who wrote poetry, music, newspaper columns, and 2 books.
My grandfather was a good man. He lived his life by a pretty simple code. No matter what you do, you work hard. You treat others exactly the way you wish to be treated. If it's broke and you're capable, fix it. If you're in a position to help someone, you help them.
In the pioneering spirit we were born.
The usual visits with Phil. Right about 6 to 7 minutes, he started to get a little restless. You'd shoot the breeze a little, and then he said, "Thanks for coming," and then you were gone. I could go on and on about Governor Batt, but I think I can hear him getting a little restless, ready to give me one of his repeated lines when I visited him. "Thanks for coming. See you later."
There is freedom in the sky, and I'll live here till I die. Idaho.
Whenever we need a reminder of what true leadership is, we should look to Phil Batt. I am truly honored and blessed to have known this person, and even more honored to have his leadership.
Close family and friends buried Governor Batt later today after that ceremony in Wilder, in a private ceremony after the public service.
Had reports of nearly 16 inches of new snow in some spots in the mountains. Who knows, maybe some areas had a little more. And you know, each day we've had some snow for the past 13 days. The record's 12 days back in 1933. So we've got a new record. And it could snow again later tomorrow night before we get into Sunday, and a little bit on Sunday. So it may go up just a little bit higher. As you look outside there, you can see the overcast. There might be a few sprinkles around the area. And looking at the current temperature, you see we're still up there somewhere right around 50 degrees, 41 degrees for Twin Falls. Wind speeds, they're still blowing. Yeah, they're still blowing out there, but not quite like the gusts they had this morning. Whoa, did that wake you up? 41 miles an hour in Boise, 48 in Ontario, and in Boise, that occurred between the 11 to 12 o'clock hour. Same thing, 11 to 12 o'clock hour, and wow. Did the winds ever blow in Twin Falls up to 74 miles an hour? Rain, we've had about 1,500 of an inch, almost a quarter of an inch in Ontario, a little bit less over here in Twin Falls. And the mountains, of course, had quite a bit of snow, as we were just talking about here just a little while ago. Something that was interesting about this, last night when I was on at 10 o'clock, our temperatures were close to freezing and we were getting some light snow. Look what happens right in here. 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, up into the 40s to the mid 40s. No wonder all of that changed over to rain and that temperature warmed up, as you can see, getting close to 50 degrees for this afternoon. So for tonight, the winds will die down just a little bit. Not quite as bad for tomorrow, but they'll be between about 5 to 15 miles an hour, and the day will have some sunshine. I think you'll enjoy your Saturday there with a temperature somewhere into the mid 40s, maybe even getting a little bit warmer than that. Ski resorts, here are the amounts of snow, about 8 inches, all the way down to Soldier Mountain that had 12 new inches of snow. So quite a bit of snow around the area. Yet for tonight, there could be a light shower there, as you can see, but other than that, it starts to clear off. And then we eventually get to some snow later Saturday night. There comes in. Okay, but it's more than likely early Sunday morning. So we may be breaking that streak, turning to some rain showers on Sunday afternoon. So we talked about that. You've been hearing about the time change. It's an hour ahead, okay, that's going to be Saturday night. And with these temperatures up around 50 degrees, we're going to be getting, well, we're going to be rain and rain next week. But we've got more moisture coming in. You know what it means? Joe, it means more snow for the mountains.
Hey, we like that. Get the rain coat and umbrella out for next week. Anyways, we don't normally do sports here on the 208, but there is a lot of action to keep an eye on this weekend. So here we go. The hottest team in town, the Idaho Steelheads, well, they are back in action tonight and tomorrow. The goal this weekend, get a playoff spot clinched. With 17 games left, the Steelheads are in the top position in the league, so a big target on their back heading into the weekend series against the Allen Americans. I met up with Steelheads play-by-play man, the voice of the Steelheads, Cam McGuire, at Morning Skate to take a look at playoff scenarios and a major accomplishment the Steelheads can make this weekend. Crisp hockey at Morning Skate Friday, ahead of a weekend where the Idaho Steelheads have big things to accomplish.
Here tonight, the Steelheads have a chance to lock up a playoff spot, also an opportunity to lock up the Mountain Division.
Cam McGuire is the voice of the Idaho Steelheads.
Top of the left circle, unloads a blast. He scores on the power play.
He's watching for some major season accomplishments during the Friday-Saturday series with the Allen Americans.
Idaho tonight, if they grab 1 point and Utah loses a point, the Steelheads will clinch a spot into the Kelly Cup playoffs. Now the Grizzlies are playing the Kansas City Mavericks, and if the Steelheads win here tonight and Kansas City loses, that would also mean that the Steelheads clinch the Mountain Division.
So Idaho can be the first team in the ECHL this season to clinch a division and playoff spot. The ECHL tweeting out scenarios to watch for. Idaho looked to do this last weekend on the road, but being back in Boise this weekend works out just fine.
Like they say, it's always better to have these milestones and have these clinching moments on home ice.
To do that, though, Idaho has to take on the tough matchup with the Allen Americans. Allen has 3 of the top 4 goal scorers in the entire league.
Whether it's been Colton Hargrove, Hank Crone, Jack Combs, or even Liam Finley, Those 4 guys constitute for 64% of Allen's goals.
So defense and goaltending will be a focal point for Idaho. Netminder Adam Scheel has his work cut out for him.
Scheeler's more than capable of getting things done. He's 3rd in terms of goals against as well as save percentage in the entire league, and he's had a great stretch here over the last couple of months.
So what to watch for this weekend? McGuire says the stylistic matchup between Allen and Idaho should make for a high-paced series, something the Steelheads need to keep a close eye on.
The Americans love to play this run-and-gun style, and you look at their last 10 games, they've scored 5 or more goals in most of those contests, but they've also given up 5 or more goals in most of those contests. So if the Steelheads stick to their identity, not only here tonight, but throughout the weekend, I think it'll be a successful 2 games against Allen.
Puck drop tonight and tomorrow is 7:10 p.m. Full crowd expected in downtown Boise as they're going to have a full house to cheer on the Steelies. 17 games left in the regular season. Road to the playoffs is in full gear. So I know, 2 sports stories in a row here on the 208. What's going on? Well, this is a big deal too. We're in the heat of the Mountain West men's basketball tournament. If you didn't know, last night the Boise State Broncos, they beat UNLV 87-76 in overtime to advance to the semifinals of that tournament. Now, this is the 3rd time Boise State has made it to the Mountain West semifinals in the last 4 years, 5th time ever. The Broncos will take on Utah State tonight at 10 p.m. Mountain Time. It's technically 9:59 tip-off, but we'll round up to 10. And you can catch KTVB Sports Director Jay Tust live from the City of Lights, Las Vegas. He'll be there at 6 o'clock right after this show in about 30 minutes for a preview of the big matchup. Then tune in tomorrow to the morning news for highlights of tonight's big game. And hopefully we'll see Boise State make it to the Mountain West Championship game, which would be tomorrow at 4 p.m. Mountain Time on CBS. Oh, a hat trick. That's 3 sports stories in a row. What's going on? Well, this one we've been bringing you all week, and we're taking our last check-in this week on the only Idahoan competing in the Iditarod sled dog race up in Alaska. So let's see what place Jed Stevenson is in today, and currently the Sandpoint resident is in 30th place out of 32, and that is 3 spots lower than yesterday when he was in 27th. It's okay though, Jed, you still got this. That is a very difficult thing to do, so we will check back in on the Iditarod and where Jed is next week when the 208 returns after this weekend. And then finally, sports adjacent for you, I guess. So today is March 10th, or Mar 10, M-A-R period 10, right? Which is stylized to look like the word Mario, M-A-R-I-O. So Mario, like the plumber, Super Mario Brothers. Well, because today, March 10th, looks like the word Mario, today around the world, it is Mario Brothers Day. And of course, if you're a Mario fan, you will know the game Mario Kart, the Nintendo game where you race around with all the great Nintendo characters. Well, if you're looking to get that experience off screen and in real life, the brand new K1 Speed Boise indoor racetrack, they're offering discounts if you dress up as Mario and you want to race on their indoor track tonight. That's right. Real-life Mario Kart, and they are open until midnight. You can see the venue there, just opened. You have to dress, though, as Mario from Super Mario Brothers to get a discount. If any of you go, please take a picture, send it in. We want to know if there's some real-life Mario Kart racing in Boise. All right, let's finish off the week with some comments. Let's roll the Comment-tron 7000. This person says, thanks for sharing bits of Governor Phil Batt's funeral. He was such a decent man. Hopefully all the politicians who attended will aspire to emulate that decency. That's from Cecil and Meridian. Yes, Governor Batt, an all-time great. He will be missed. This person says, David says, thank you for the Steelheads and Broncos update, even the Iditarod and the Mario Kart. But while you are reporting on successful sports programs, how about mentioning the C of I men's basketball team? Yes, David, those Yotes, College of Idaho, they are crushing it out there. Go Yotes. Seeing a big March Madness for them as well. Tim says, what is it with the surge of gigantic concrete warehouse buildings? Look like we have Amazon buildings everywhere. Tim, they just don't build them like they used to, I guess. And this person says, please remind parents and drivers that kids will be dealing with much darker mornings with the daylight saving time. Be careful on Monday when you leave the house. Set those clocks back. We'll see you Monday.